Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. This is Vantage Point PRU. We are at Lemidi Mediterranean Restaurant. It's a nice place to dine at here, located at Bangsa Shopping Centre. Now with the elections coming closer, we can't deny the spotlight that the youth generation has gained, especially with their participation and engagement in civil society, youth organizations, NGOs and clubs made just for youths. But in this fast-paced and techno-modern era, the generation today has been introduced to a world where there is no limit to accessibility to any type of information, especially for those living in the urban areas. We have our smartphones, iPads, which are all equipped with GPS, internet access. So at the tip of our fingers, and in a matter of seconds, we can get what we want when we want it. We are so used to this sort of lifestyle, it manifests itself in other forms at times. And at times, the youth generation has been perceived as being a bit too demanding. Yesterday's youth is different than today's, definitely. So we are here today to discuss on how to tackle this difference, to make sure that the right issues are being addressed, and that we are on our way to molding great leaders for our country's future, of course. I'm Nadia Azmi and this is Cynthia Ng, and today we have three guests who are all active in civil society. On my far right we have Christopher Talk, who is the co-founder of iProject, or its full name, Empowering Youth and Endeavours. Next to him is Fatiha Johan Arifin, who is the treasurer of BQE, an NGO, and its full name is Brewing Quality Youth Entrepreneur Association, who is also a young entrepreneur herself. And here on my right is Fazil Imran Ismail, the chairman of BQE. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let me start off with Chris. You could explain a bit about what iProject is all about.
Okay, iProject. Well, it started when we thought that the local students here have a lot more to offer. And I think it's basically having not enough exposure to what people are doing outside and having not enough confidence for them to say, hey, you know what, I can do something bigger than this. So we created a company that will hold 4 main initiatives, one of which is called the Student Engagement Center, and that would be the whole club and societies network for public and private universities all over Malaysia. So with that, we can combine, we can connect people with different interests, the similar interests together within the universities, and as well as getting other people, like the companies, for example, to locate them and maybe do projects with these guys. So it's all about networking for for Student Engagement Center. Whereas the second initiative is something called Spark, which is a student resource center, where we split into 2 things. One is a series of events, a monthly series of events where we invite personalities like CEOs, top CEOs. We just recently had Dr. Sri Johan from PwC, and we have also celebrities like Hannah Tan and even a superstar entrepreneur such as Joel Neo. So these people would then talk to this a group of young students and hopefully inspire them to do something bigger.
Imran, a little bit about BQE.
Right, so BE actually started sometime in 2010. I believe it was about June or July, and it was a very small collection of friends coming over for just someone to talk about topics related to entrepreneurship. So we used to be called Building Quality Entrepreneurs, BQE as well.
Okay.
So I believe it was in 2011 when we moved over and had our sessions at the gardens. And we started to expand our operations more. So instead of the 4, 5, 20, we move on to 40, 50, 60. So with the building numbers, we realized that there's a lot of people interested in this, in all this entrepreneurship related endeavors.
So BQE is more specialized for those young individuals who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, how to start businesses and all that.
People like yourself, like NGOs, like social entrepreneurs and non-profit organizations, these are where the youth turn to nowadays when they talk about furthering their causes. How do you see these civil movements to represent what the young people want?
To add on, because society all over the world, particularly the youth, we've seen them evolve. You know, in the past 5 to 10 years, they're more bold and more brave to express their opinions, what they want, their ideas and all that. It's not just happening in Malaysia, I think it's happening all over the world. Like, for example, in August of last year, we had the London or Tottenham riots, where involved many, many youths, as we've seen on TV. So how would you illustrate the situation in Malaysia? Fatiha, maybe you could answer that.
I think it's because most of the time it's about the generation gap of generations, Generation X and Y, the differences of these two, and also the academic background, the economic status,
What
and
are the
so
differences,
forth.
do you think, between these two generations
Between
that are
these
quite
two,
apparent?
okay, as to compare, I think that we are in the late Generation X, and upcoming, those who is in about 18, 19, 20 is generation in the Generation Y. So basically, for Generation Y, the focus based on more on the individualistic type of behavior and so forth. They have that's why you mentioned that they are more bold. They are more for courage to speak out and so forth. As to compare to Generation X, we are more on the collectivism perspective of viewpoints and so forth. So
Fatia, I'm going to have to cut you short there. We'll continue after this. We'll go for our first commercial break. Hello, we're back on Vantage Point PRU. We were just talking about the differences between Generation X and Generation Y and how they act in the society. So Fatia, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on that, the differences that you see between these two generations.
Okay, so as mentioned, in Generation Y, they are more individualistic as to compared to Generation X. So when it comes to the political arena and so forth, Generation X do not mind having one representative or one leader as to compare to Generation Y. They want to be the leader, they want to be voiced out and so forth. So that's the difference between these two kind. And as mentioned, it also related to education setting, the economic status, their background and so forth.
When you talk about these preferences and all that, maybe I'll pose this question to Imran. Do you think one's ethnic background influences their perceptions, their attitudes towards what they want, in politics and in governance?
Well, I would say to a certain degree, to a certain extent, it's definitely going to play something. I mean, when we talk about their ethnic backgrounds, it definitely, what also comes into play would be their culture, it would be their family, rules in their family, what they do in their family. So it's all about their socialization. It begins at the family, it begins at outwards, and as you move on, it's definitely going to accept how you see and want to do things. So culturally, I would say, I mean, if I look at my own friends, you can see you can see a lot of differences. This particular ethnic background, even among a certain common race, they would have different views as well. Some would be more strongly opinionated. Others would be like, I don't care, it's not going to affect me much.
Okay, well, I would like to talk a bit about policies, right? The government is trying to transform the nation by implementing ETP, GTP, NEM. But how does the youth really understand this kind of policies? Do they think it will help them in the long run? Do they see the value in it? And for a young person like yourself, what kind of policies do you want to see?
Well, to be honest, I think the youth don't really feel it at that level. And when they don't feel it, I don't think they will think about it in the first place. So I think it takes a while before it reaches them. But I think most importantly is youth participation. They have to participate in these things. So the right calling for any government or any ministers to do is to actually get them to participate in policy making instead of just politics in nature. That's right. Yes. So that's what I think the future of. We'll probably go for that kind of approach rather than just getting the benefits.
Also, all these policies, and talk about the general elections coming soon. And for a young person, what do you see first? Do you see the party and what it stands for? Do you see the policies and manifestos that is being laid out, or do you see the individual candidates itself? Because if I were to go to less urban areas, they relate better to people on the ground, people who go mamak with them, people who play sports with them. But for urban people like us in KL, we are more concerned about national issues like personal freedom, a rising cost of living. What about you, Fatiha? What do you think?
Basically, as what I've mentioned also about the generation, about the different gap of society, the environment factors, the background and so forth. Our side, we are more prone to accept certain things where it works actions speak louder than words actually. So as to that context, if a leader can actually execute certain things that can actually work and so forth, we definitely will vote for them in a way.
I'm going to take an example in the US. 76-year-old Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul. He's 76 years old. He's the oldest presidential candidate in the US, and he has definitely garnered massive and immense support from young voters in the US. Okay, so I don't know, maybe you can conclude that age doesn't matter. As long as his visions, his ideas correlate with what the youth want, they will support him.
Right.
Do you think that a similar pattern could be seen in Malaysia? Maybe Imran?
Well, I believe it definitely could happen. But if I were to look at the people that I know, the people I've talked to, it's going to be it's like a.
Is there a preference, with all the youths that you work with? Do they want to see someone younger, preferably? Is there?
As far as age is
Or
concerned,
what do you, in your perspective, what do you
okay,
think?
from
about
my personal perspective, I just want someone who can actually walk the talk. I mean, basically, you see, the problem of Malaysian politics is going to be just something like some countries whereby they do more mudslinging and stuff like that. Honestly, people are getting tired of it. It makes you wonder, why are they out there? We can do this too. We can mudsling as well, but we don't want to. So people are starting to really understand the issues, even the younger ones. And I would say it's quite an improvement compared to, let's say, when I was in university.
Chris, what kind of engagement do you want from your leaders?
Yeah, it's a very negative implication when you see politicians, our so-called heroes, doing all kinds of personal attacks on each other, and unfortunately in Malaysia, our heroes are the politicians themselves, whether we like it or not. We see our prime ministers as the person that represents our country. We follow their every move, and so it's really important that these politicians also make a great example, and they can start by reducing the mudslinging.
Do you think criticisms that we throw constantly at these politicians, do you think they're necessary? Whether they'll help build these politicians to become aware of the needs of the youths?
Well, I think there's a certain extent to how much feedback that we can give the politicians. I think what's really important right now is for us to make a stand and for us to do the work ourselves. So I think we are all in the same area. We are all in the social sector, and I think we want to push for a more public-led services. Say for example, we would like to have more authority or more power to run our own things that we are passionate about, and not just have the government do it. So I think it's a win-win side in both sides. The government gets less deficit and say what do you call that? Revenue, expenditure. Yeah, I think the money they spend on this social services can be passed to us, and we will maximize that impact. I think many folds.
And plus, you guys actually know the people better compared to who is running the offices at the ministry.
Okay, we're going to go for another short commercial break, and after this, we're going to find out how NGOs can provide check and balance to the government. We'll be right back. Welcome back on Vantage Point PRU. Now we're going to find out how NGOs, youth NGOs particularly, can provide check and balance to the governance of our country. Chris, what do you think on that?
I think it's perfect institutions to provide check and balance to what the government wants to do. For example, there's no such thing as a perfect government. I think we can all agree with that. And we are the people on the ground, and so we know what the people want. We may not know what's necessary for the future, but that's the government's role. So if we can combine a good vision together with the real work that's being done on the ground, I think then we'll get a better environment, and where it's healthy, where all of us can grow. And again, it's beneficial for both sides.
Okay, Fatia, how do you think youth organizations and political development interrelate?
Yeah, definitely. Because we definitely need endorsement, support, and collaboration from government and semi-government GLCs and so forth. So I do think that we can collaborate in the sense that to make a better nation, to make a better entrepreneurs and so forth in Malaysia. Yeah.
Okay, Imran, you work with lots of young entrepreneurs. So what kind of incentives are they really looking for? You know, is it venture capitals, R&D, research and development, grants?
Looking at the
perhaps?
current trend, I would say it's more about ownership. It's more about having something that they can call their own. I mean, everything else is secondary. It's part of the learning process. They probably will fail in their first venture, but a lot of startups do. So it's perfectly normal.
Okay, there's about estimated 7 million young voters to vote in this 13th January elections, and it's no denying to say that the young voters will definitely make a big impact in who will win in this next January elections. So I would like to understand, if I am somebody standing from a political party standpoint, right? How can I win your votes? What is it that you want? Maybe you can start with Chris.
Well, to be blunt, I just want the government to be a lot more. Maybe they should practice something called the social market economy, where less hold will be on from the government themselves, and more ownership is given back to the civil society. With any government that can put that in place will ensure that not only the civil society grows, which is positive for not only the country but also the country's economic and stability, will definitely win our vote. That's what I think.
Basically, for me, it's more less of promises, but more on action and so forth, and involvement. Our involvement in the policy making, involvement in terms of implementation. Enough with policy making, but more on action and so forth. So, to me, that's the main important manner.
Okay, Imran?
I agree with Fatih. It's more about the implementation part, but another thing I would like to add is about when it comes to policy making, I know they have all the professionals, I'm very sure of that, who are working on the policies, but I really wish that they would actually listen to people on the ground first. I mean, if you remember a few months back, they had that CPB thing, computing professional bills. That one.
I mean, I don't know if they even consulted any of us.
Yeah.
And it affects all of us because
it affects everyone who's working with the IT industry, because because it's so vague, anything can be misused against them.
Yes.
It'll be something that we really need to look at. It's too vague. It needs to be more specific, and they really need to listen to people from the
I
ground.
think what I'm trying to say is that the youth should be part and parcel of the creation of the policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in order for that to happen, at the same time, we need to create awareness among these youth for them to actually be involved. Do you think that these youth, do they feel that government decisions impact their daily lives? From your experiences, Chris, do you think that that's how they feel?
I think they do, and with the advent of social media as well. Basically everything that's said by the government is out on the news, and obviously they have their own machineries to also share this message. So it does impact the youth in the sense that the positive ones will gain from it. For example, the 200 ringgit voucher, book voucher that was given out. I think a lot of people benefited from this. But at the same time, I think that's too short a kind of an initiative.
It's like a short-term aid.
That's right. It's a short-term aid, and I think we should be focusing more on the long-term types, the ones that grow. Let's for example, in my sense, it would be the undergraduates of the nation.
When we talk about social media, in 2008 general elections, social media played a huge role in especially swaying the vote. And for this time around, the government has listened. They are trying to make initiatives, trying to get in touch with the young people, even our Prime Minister himself. But what's next after this? What more do you want to see, Imran?
Well, I think it's a good step, because people feel that they now have more access to the politicians as opposed to last time. You're probably lucky if you have their phone number. Now you have their Twitter account. So it's not a big deal anymore. You can actually, and some of these politicians, they actually get back to you, like Saifuddin, Dahlan. They get back to you. So that's one very important thing in making the younger people feel like they have a voice, they have a channel, and people over on that side, they actually pay attention to what you're saying. I've seen a lot of debates between, let's say, KJ and Mukhris with other people who talk with them on Twitter. And I think it's very healthy. This is definitely the first step.
National discourse going on Twitter itself.
Yeah. But I think this is something that's been done for many years already, and I think youth of today demand something more. So I think instead of just doing this online, berita terkini kind of style,
we have to move on.
We have to move on to the next
Okay.
stage, which is engagement.
So what do you think, the role of social media?
At this moment, it's very important for the economic status and the political status as well, because like they said, and in terms of voice and so forth, I do think that we only need one voice actually, as to compare to everybody and so forth, but have to be a collective voice, an overall voice, as to compare to, you know, everybody have their own meaning, everybody have their own thoughts and so forth. So that is how I look at it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much to all of our guests today. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, the voices of the youth. If you'd like to experience dining with beautiful Japanese moon jellyfish, come on over at Lemidi Mediterranean Restaurant at Level 3, Bangsa Shopping Center. With that, Assalamualaikum, goodbye, and we'll see you again.